The Super Bowl has completed. The Chiefs are back-to-back NFL champions, and now the final order of the NFL draft is finally set. We have about 2 months before the draft happens, and prospect rankings will rise and fall as we get ever closer to the biggest day in the lives of these young men. Every team has specific needs heading into this year's draft, and the Packers are no different. This video is going to be going through what I think the Packers' top 5 draft needs are this year. This is my own opinion, and if you think some other position group deserves to be in the conversation, please let me know down in the comments. But let's go ahead and get started with number 5. Now, this may come as a shock to some as a draft need, as the Packers' O-line last year played really well down the stretch with the starting lineup of Rasheed Walker, Elton Jenkins, Josh Myers, Jon Runyan, and Zach Tom. But there are a couple of reasons why I think this group is going to be a need for the Packers, and one that could have a couple players taken in either late day 2 or early day 3 during the draft. The first reason is that there are a couple of free agents along the O-line who will most likely not be brought back for next season. Those include starting right guard Jon Runyan and backups Royce Newman and Yosh Nijman. Another player most likely not returning to the Packers is former All-Pro David Bakhtiari, who is probably going to be cut from the roster. So besides from the 4 starters of Walker, Jenkins, Myers, and Tom, the only other offensive linemen who would be on the roster are Sean Rhyan, who could slide in as a starting right guard, Caleb Jones, and Kadeem Telfort. There's not a lot of depth there at all, so I imagine the Packers would take a couple of guys who could be good depth pieces at the time being, while also potentially developing them into starters, particularly for the center and guard positions. This is another position group that I think the Packers could target late day 2 or early day 3, depending on where players fall. The main reason that is one of the positions for need is that there is a combination of needing depth on the roster and finding a long-term replacement for Devondre Campbell, who is most likely going to be cut by the Packers due to cap reasons. Right now, assuming Campbell is going to be cut, the 2 starters are going to be Quay Walker and Isaiah McDuffie, with Eric Wilson being the primary backup. We don't really know how good McDuffie is going to be as a full-time starter, and there are some injury concerns with Walker as he missed a couple of games last season due to those injuries. The Packers most likely want to add a younger guy into the room to be a backup for those 2 and to be a serviceable spot starter in case of injuries or ineffectiveness. Another position I think the Packers could target on either late day 2 or early day 3 again is the running back position. Aaron Jones is coming back to the team. GM Brian Gutekunst stated that Jones coming back is one of the top priorities for the team, and I completely agree that as he is not only a fantastic player on the field, but his leadership off the field has made him instrumental for this young team. But who is going to be behind him is the main question. Both A.J. Dillon and Patrick Taylor are free agents, and the only one I can see being brought back is Dillon if it is on a cheap deal. Add in the fact that Aaron Jones is going to turn 30 in the middle of the season this year and dealt with injuries as well, the Packers should look for a young back in this year's draft to be the backup, learn from Jones, and step in when needed in situations in terms of injury. I think that is the way to go. Now, this is the first position that I think the Packers could use a first-round pick on. The state of the Packers cornerback room at the moment isn't looking the greatest. Currently, we have Jaire Alexander, Carrington Valentine, Eric Stokes, and Corey Ballentine as significant names, with Keyshawn Nixon being a free agent. I would imagine Nixon is brought back due to his excellence in being a return man, but Valentine is still pretty raw. Ballentine is not that good, and we don't know how Stokes is going to play due to missing most of the past 2 seasons with injury. With our new DC being a former defensive backs coach, and with the depth of this corner class being really, really good, I would imagine that the Packers would want to use their first-round pick to get one of the top guys to pair up with Jaire on the outside, and use Valentine and Stokes in either dime or nickel packages. Those 4 of Alexander, Valentine, Stokes, and the new guy would be a really good corner group and would be a massive improvement over last season's group as well. Before we get into my number 1 spot, I have a couple of honorable mentions that I want to highlight really quickly. One is edge rusher, primarily for depth purposes, as our 4th guy in the rotation, Kingsley Enagbare, tore his ACL last season and will be out for the majority of the 2024 season. Expect a later round pick to be used on the edge rusher. The second one I'm going to mention is defensive tackle. I think that the Packers could use another big body DT to be a run stuffer next to Kenny Clark in our new 4-3 system. TJ Slaton has been good in that role, but I would imagine that the Packers would look to add another guy into there as well. And the number one spot goes to a position that I think everyone can agree on is the top priority for the Packers, which is safety. This is by far the biggest need for the Packers heading into the 2024 season, and I would expect them to use their early day 2 picks to pick up a couple of guys to improve that room. The safety room last year was not good at all, and all the players who got significant time at the position are free agents, except for Anthony Johnson Jr., who was a rookie last year. Darnell Savage, Rudy Ford, and Jonathan Owens are all free agents, but I do expect 2 of these 3 guys to be brought back on cheap deals to provide some experience and depth at the position, and the rest will either be other free agent additions or draft capital used. But the Packers have to address this position either way, through free agency or through the draft. There is no way they can roll out the same group as last season and expect things to change, especially with how aggressive our DC is going to be calling press man coverage next year. We need good safeties to make that work, and that is why safety is a big need for this team. So to recap, number 5 is offensive line, number 4 is linebacker, number 3 is running back, number 2 is cornerback, and number 1 is a safety position. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the content, like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more. I'll be back with more draft content coming up soon.